Welcome to the Cruising is Life podcast. Whether you're a seasoned cruiser or just starting out, we have something for everyone. So sit back, relax, and get ready to set sail with us on the Cruising is Life podcast.
All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Cruising is Life podcast. How's it going, everybody? We are, of course, joined by our normal co-host, Justin. How's it going, buddy?
Hello, everything's good.
We got a fun, exciting topic here for today. We've got Disney Cruise Line, the history, the future, mostly focused on the future of Disney Cruise Line, as they have a pretty big expansion coming up over the next couple of years. And of course, they had, being one of the smaller cruise lines, everybody knows Disney Cruise Line, of course, but it seems like they're kind of making big strides over the next couple of years to kind of start building themselves up. Maybe they definitely will never compete with the big cruise lines, but they'll definitely make a big impression over the next few years, I think.
Yeah, for sure. Especially, what we've seen, and we'll go into it, but what we've seen over the last, couple of years and what they've announced, they got a bright future ahead of them.
Yeah, exactly. And just to touch on one of I see right at the top of our chat list here, just wanted to touch on, Birds asked about, do we think the bridge collapse over in Baltimore is going to affect cruises on Vision of the Seas? Definitely. We'll briefly touch on this before we start. That way we kind of go ahead and go over that. But yeah, so luckily with the Port of Baltimore, everything is getting ready to go over for the European season. Early to mid-April is when all the ships over there, I know we have the Vision and the Legend sailing out of there right now. Both of them luckily were out at sea during that, so they're not trapped in the port, anything like that. And of course, our thoughts and prayers go out to anybody that's been affected by it, by the bridge collapse, and of course the city of Baltimore and all that. But yeah, as far as the cruise operations go, it's definitely going to be quite a while. Luckily, the season is over for the Port of Baltimore, so there's not going to be any ships scheduled to even be there for the next couple months, other than just the last 1 to 2 sailings for the 2 ships that are there.
Yeah, so I guess, if you even want to call it the bright side of things, that is one good thing, especially with the ships not being in port that day. That helped out. So I think, at least Legend is going up to Norfolk to disembark. I don't know what they're going to do with the people leaving that day, whether they're going to bus them to the ship or whatever. I can't even imagine what that would be like. But it's going to definitely impact, a couple of cruises here and there. But like you said, we're going into the summer season, which is pretty much, they don't have anything, right?
They don't have anything.
So that'll be a benefit. And actually, unrelated to cruising, my parents are actually up there for a wedding, and I don't know what day, but they actually drove over that bridge like a day or two before it happened.
Oh, wow. That's crazy.
I texted my dad about it. So I was like, oh, because I knew they were up there. And he was like, yeah, we just drove over it not too long ago. I'm like, oh my God.
That's crazy.
So it's a tragedy, unfortunately.
It definitely is. But yeah, as far as the cruise operations though, we're not gonna see too much of an effect. I'm sure that the last sailing or 2 for Legend is gonna be out of Norfolk. Maybe probably the same thing, maybe New York. Before Vision, I don't know yet. Royal Caribbean hasn't come up with their press release for it just yet, or what they're planning to do.
Mm-hmm.
But Carnival, I think earlier today, said that they were going to just go to Norfolk, at least to disembark, and I'm sure the next sailing or 2 will sail from there as well, because I think all she's got left is a transatlantic.
Gotcha.
But yeah. Anyways, transitioning into our main topic of today, though, is Disney Cruise Line. Disney Cruise Line, of course, is one of the newer ones as well. They only just started up in the 90s, or the late 90s, so despite almost being 30 years, they're definitely not nearly, at the age of some of these other cruise lines, like Carnival, who just celebrated their 50th, and Royal Caribbean, I think it did as well a couple years ago.
Yes. And even, 30 years does sound like a lot, but they've really only had 4 ships up until
just recently. So
it's been 30 years, but it's been a slow 30 years.
Right, exactly. And Disney Cruise Line themselves has never been the big focus of Disney in the first place. It's always been one of their little side pieces and side organizations that they've always had. So it's never been their main priority, things like that. But of course, it's becoming I think they're definitely starting to capitalize on the expansion of the industry overall, and just expand their fleet. Of course, they've always been very successful with Magic and Wonder, and then of course even the Dream class ships for them have been widely popular. So, with and it's hard to think about, but Magic and Wonder are getting up there in age. Like we mentioned, 30 years. I mean, we're getting up to. I think Magic is 25 and Wonder turns 25 this year.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's very weird to think about.
Yeah, those are very, very nice ships, and of course, very in very good shape, especially for something that age. So, I don't think we'll see those get retired anytime soon. But probably around the 30-year mark, we might start seeing that come into question, just due to the age and maintenance costs of something like that. But I really, given Disney and their uniqueness, I don't know if there's ever going to be a buyer for a ship like that.
Right. Yeah. The ship. I mean, most or the new ships are all custom built for the cruise lines, but Disney's is a little more specific in certain areas. So you make a good point. Yeah, I don't know how many cruise lines would be interested in buying a ship that's specifically tailored for Disney.
Yeah, and specifically tailored for Disney. I mean, there are things in the actual architecture of the ship that is Disney that they would more than likely have to change just based off of licensing and things like that in the first place.
Right.
I mean, I know, like, for example, like with Carnival, whenever an old Carnival ship has been transferred out, they usually will have to chop off the whale tail at least.
Yeah, or at least, completely repaint it. I think that one Bahamas ship at that time had the Carnival funnel, but it was like completely repainted.
Right, exactly. I think they were somehow able to get away with that.
Right.
But yeah, so it's crazy, and they originally started as like I think it was the Big Red Boat Premier Cruises and things like that, and they worked their way up. They're like, all right, yeah, let's do Disney Cruise Line. One really cool thing that that never came to the light of day was Port Disney over in Los Angeles and Long Beach. I don't know, you've seen that, right, from Bright Sun Films?
Yes, that was a super ambitious project, which I wish they had followed through with. Obviously they didn't, but that would have been crazy.
Yeah, and it probably, looking back now, like in hindsight, it's probably good that project never came to be, just because that market did take a downturn for, I guess, in the late 2000s and early 2010s. So, and it's just now recovering. So had they spent all those millions of dollars back then to redo that whole port area, they probably would have, probably not been in the best shape, after not having too many ships there. But It was a really cool idea. And actually, that ended up being Tokyo Disney Sea.
Yes.
Which is supposedly one of the best parks to go to. So I do want to go there and try that out. It looks pretty cool.
They have a whole... what ship is it there?
The Queen Mary. Yeah, it's like a rep, because originally Tokyo Disney Sea was in that Queen Mary area, and so that was their way of getting away with it, or getting around that, like still incorporating that into the final project. So it's pretty cool that in Tokyo they have the Queen Mary replica there. And then of course a couple of years down the road we got the Dream class, which I think have probably been some of the more successful ships like in the industry overall. Just I mean, those are probably some of the best looking ships out there too, in my opinion, at least.
For sure, yeah. Disney does a good job at designing ships, and they kind of, at least for the original two, and it kind of followed over. They wanted that like modern look, but also old style, like ocean liner type look. So it's a unique design that they've come up with. I really like it.
Yeah, that's why all the Disney ships have the dual stacked funnels like that. They have the front and the back ones, and it's just to replicate those old traditional ocean liners, which is really neat that they still do that even with the new ships.
Yep.
One of the really cool things that debuted on the Dream class ships was, of course, the Aqueduct, Aquamouse?
I think it's the Aqueduct. I think the Wish is the Aquamouse.
That's it. It's one or the other, but
whatever.
So that's like that was like almost a aquatic roller coaster, but not necessarily.
Right.
It's like it has like the element, like the parts of it that go up, where you're like on a bit of a track that goes up and things like that. But I don't know if you knew this, but that was originally planned to be a lazy river.
I think I heard about that. I mean, I love a good lazy river, but what they have now is awesome.
Yeah, I agree. I think they just, of course, couldn't get the deck space, so by elevating it up onto a track and into a little tube and making it a slide, that was kind of the way to get around it. But it's
Yes.
really cool. I mean, a lazy river on a ship is, of course, a concept that we have never seen before, but we have seen it on many projects that just
Yes.
never came to life or just never ended up following through. Of course, referencing Pinnacle Project.
Yes, of course.
But yeah, that would have been really cool to see. And then, of course, now we have the evolution of it, where we now have a lot of people call it the Wish class, but apparently the technical term is the Triton class. I don't
Yeah,
know why
I don't know why.
I don't know. So for those who don't know, I worked at Disney. I did the college internship a couple years ago, and one of my roommates actually was one of the Imagineers that worked on the Triton class. So that's kind of I'm like, he's like, it's the Triton class. I'm like, all right.
Yeah, whatever.
I'm like, all right. It's Triton class. But it's really cool though. Like, of course he was never able to tell me anything about it, and so I never really knew anything about the ship until it started coming out and things like that. But overall, it was still pretty cool. The Wish class, I guess I just went over all that. I almost still called it the Wish class. The Triton class is the Wish has been very, very successful so far. I think the Wish has done a great job, and it's been. I think he froze. You there?
Yeah, so I
Okay.
just lost the internet for a second. Sorry
Oh,
about that.
okay. I was like, uh-oh.
I thought I lost you for a second, but it was me. Sorry about that.
No, you're good. But yeah, the Wish has been pretty successful. I mean, it's been doing really good on those 3 and 4 night sailings, and I hear a lot of great things about it.
Yeah, they did a good job with that, especially putting it on the 3 nights. I mean, Disney Cruising is expensive as it is, but I think that gave a lot more people the opportunity to go on a new ship,
Hmm.
and not have to spend a week, cruising around and tens of thousands of dollars. So I think that was a good move by Disney. And I know we're seeing it with some of the newer, like Utopia and stuff like that going on the
Yeah.
3 nights. So, like you said, it was very successful, and I think part of it. Well, I mean, it would have done well regardless, but I think part of that was doing the short cruises to give more people the opportunity to do like Disney World and Disney Cruise Vacations at the same time.
Right, exactly. And it's not a new concept for Disney either, doing their brand new ship out of there. It's new to the rest of the industry. I mean, that was unheard of and a shock to the industry when we saw that for Utopia a few months ago. But I mean,
Right.
Disney's technically been doing that since day one. I think when the Magic came out, I'm pretty sure she was operating the 3 and 4s, if I'm not mistaken. One of those two, but I'm pretty sure it was Magic. But
Yes.
somebody
I don't
may
know.
have to fact check
Yes.
me there, but one of those two, I mean, again, brand new ship though, going straight into 3 and 4 nights, which
Right, and I think
they've been
Dream
doing
did it
since the
too,
90s.
right?
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
To follow up both of those, the Dream started doing the 3 nights straight out of the shipyard, straight into the Port Canaveral, and of course we saw it with Wish. It seems like
Yep.
what they have been doing in the past, and their trend is that they've always done pairs, of course, up until now. Now the Triton class has 3. But the first ship has always gone to Port Canaveral. They've always gone straight to Port Canaveral. Adventure is going to end up being the exception to that, which we'll dive all into Adventure here in a little bit. Adventure is going to be a really exciting one, I feel like, for them. But
Yes.
with them, the first ship in that class has always gone to 3 nights, and the second one always goes 7s. And that still holds true with the Triton class because, of course, now we have the Wish on 3 and 4s, and they've announced, I think it was maybe last year, the Treasure, which is Triton 2, is going to be going to those 7 nights to replace the Fantasy.
Right. Exactly.
And something I've noticed is that when she takes over for those 7-night sailings for Fantasy, Fantasy is going to stick around at least for a little bit in Port Canaveral. She's going to be doing 4 and 5-night itineraries, which is something that they've never done.
Yeah, that's going to be a what do you call it? Just like a unique thing that they've done. That I think they might have done it in Miami with like the Magic or something occasionally, but
Yeah.
that's something you don't usually see out of Port Canaveral.
Yeah, I think maybe the Dream did it this past year, was doing 4s and 5s for a little bit.
I think Dream is doing that right now out of Fort Lauderdale too.
Oh. So yeah, I mean, it's
Yeah.
I guess now as they start, I mean, you can't put every single ship on a 3 and 4 night and a 7 night out of Port Canaveral. You got to diversify it a little bit.
Right.
It is cool that they're expanding, to new home ports, which is really cool. I feel like seeing the Dream a couple months ago and back in November, seeing her out of Fort Lauderdale was really neat.
Yeah, it's awesome, and especially with them having that new terminal down there now, shows that they're pretty committed to keeping a ship down there.
Right, exactly. They were always sharing terminals whenever they were putting, the smaller Magic class ships down there in Miami and things like that. Even the Dream was out of Miami for a little bit. I think they were sharing, what was it, maybe C that they were using sometimes?
Yeah, so they used to use F before Carnival took it over and MSC kind of took it over. But after that, you're right, they were using C. Yeah, because that's kind of a multi-purpose terminal right now.
Right, and I think originally, for some of people may not know, but originally, I think instead of Fort Lauderdale, Disney was eyeing to do Miami instead. I think they were going to do a Terminal K, which doesn't exist, but that would have been on the south side of the port over where Terminal J is.
Yeah, that was pretty much the plan up until Fort Lauderdale came in and said, because Fort Lauderdale, where 4 is, where Disney's going, the slip where the ship would go in used to be a lot shorter. So like Princess used to dock, like when they had like a Royal class at 2, they would sometimes put like the Ruby Princess or someone at 4, and it would stick all the way out. So after they lengthened that slipway, which is like a pretty big project that they were working on, it obviously allowed them to hold bigger ships. And then I think Fort Lauderdale offered Disney to renovate 4 for themselves, and Disney took it, which I think is great, because Port Everglades lost Carnival for some reason, so it's good to see another cruise line take over.
It is super weird that Carnival, that was Carnival's terminal too for a little bit.
It was,
which I know they share. They share, what is it, 2 that Princess goes to, or is it 4?
Yeah, they share. So they share 2, but you usually don't see the Carnivals at 2. 26 is a multi-purpose terminal, usually for Holland America. And 21. So yeah, they back in like the early, like when Freedom used to be out of there, it used to be like 21. Honestly, they kind of used a lot of term. They used 19, 21, 26.
Yeah, they don't think they ever have. Yeah, I don't think they ever had like a specific terminal. I mean, I know they had. Right. I mean, they have Holland America and Princess that are operating, sometimes 4 or 5 different ships a piece out of there just in the wintertime, of course, because they all disappear and go everywhere else during the seasons. But so Carnival usually would just kind of operate wherever because they have so many ships during the winter season from their other subsidiaries. But it was pretty cool. It is very weird though that Carnival hasn't gone there, but it's cool to see Disney that's made their way over there. And I really like what they've done with that terminal too. It's kind of beautiful. Like it's a very nice terminal. And then it's kind of, to me at least, it kind of has like a 50s like retro vibe to it. Like when you look at it, it's really neat.
It's unique, yeah.
And it kind of plays with that old school ocean liner, design that they always like to go for with these ships too. So it was really cool.
Right, for sure. And I think, I don't know, I think Dream is still there now, but I think Magic is taking over over the summer out of Fort Lauderdale. So that'd be pretty cool to see a different Disney ship down there.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, yeah, that's right. The Magic is going to be going back down to Fort Lauderdale.
Yeah, I don't know where Dream is going, but maybe Europe?
I think Dream is going to Europe.
Yeah, so
like
Magic
once they leave Port Canaveral, they go all over the place.
Yeah, for real.
But it's pretty cool, though. I like it. It's cool that they're diversifying a little bit. And, of course, with the older ones and the smaller ones, they're offering more diverse stuff like Alaska, Europe, even, Panama Canal Cruise. They're even out of Galveston, too.
Yeah.
Like, the Magic is, right now, the Magic is sailing out of Galveston, which is really neat.
Yeah.
And then, so with all of that, though, so we just recently got the announcement of Disney Destiny, which I think is going to be really cool. I like that. I like the whole heroes versus villains concept that they're going to go for. I think that's really, really cool. If my cat could stop stepping all over the keyboard, that would be nice. But like, what are your thoughts on Disney Destiny? Do you like the name? Like, what are your thoughts on the ship itself?
I do. I really like that name. I don't know if I like it because it's Carnival used to use that name, but I think it's a nice name. different from Wish, Treasure, and then Destiny. I thought it would, be, I don't know what I thought it was going to be. I thought it'd be a little more similar to that, but I like it. I really like the name. And obviously it's just the third Trident class, Wish class, however you want to call it. But I think, like you said, I think that villains and hero theme is pretty unique, to kind of have it themed like that. So maybe on the back of the ship, we'll see like a hero and a villain going at it, like those little statues they put back there. But yeah, no, I think it's great. I really like it. I'm excited.
Yeah, for sure. It's really cool too, because I feel like that's not like an everyday thing. Sometimes yeah, villains usually don't get the spotlight for some things like that, or for most
Right.
things. So the fact that they're actually gonna put a focus on villains throughout the ship is gonna be really cool.
For sure.
So what itinerary do you think she's gonna run?
It's a good
Because it's,
question.
again, like I mentioned earlier, I mean, you have the first ship in the class has always gone to 3 nights, the second has always gone to 7s, but they've never done a third ship in any class. So
Right. I wonder. So the way I see, I think I mean, there could be other options, but I think there's two options they could do. One, they move the Wish down to Fort Lauderdale and
hmm
run it, how whatever the itinerary is, and then either put Treasure on the 3 nights or or put Destiny on the 3 nights, and then whatever the 7 night would be, or they just take the Treasure or the sorry, I keep thinking the Treasure is the newer one, the Destiny, and just put it like in Fort Lauderdale or something. Um, but I don't know. I think I want to say they want to put the new ship on the 7 nights, but they clearly don't because they put Wish on the 3 nights. So I don't know.
right, exactly. And I got distracted by one of the chats here. Brady asked what my top 3 Switch games are.
Oh my god.
Remind me at the end of the podcast, and I'll put it in the chat. That way, we just keep all of that off of here. But for those who don't know, I love the Nintendo Switch. um,
Oh my god.
but like what I was thinking is, because they're just starting up that itinerary or that offering in Port Canaveral on the Fantasy for the 4 and 5s. I wonder if either Wish moves to 4 and 5s, which I think would be really neat, or Destiny goes straight onto the 4 and 5s, because that's, again, not something that we've seen before.
Right. That would be
Operating
interesting.
operating 3 Disney ships out of Port Canaveral could easily lead into double Disney days, which I am all for, but they do not have the terminal abilities to do that. That is kind of
Right.
the issue. But I was
Right.
thinking, if they run like a weird itinerary schedule for it, they could do it to where, like, instead of, usually with the 4-4-5s itineraries, usually it's every other Saturday. But if they could do it to where instead of Saturdays they do Sundays, to where, like, instead of the Thursday, like it's there on a Thursday, it's there on a Sunday, where they do a 5 or 4 that time. And there's definitely a way around it. If they are trying to only do one terminal at a
Right.
time, they could easily do it. Luckily Disney has a small fleet to where that's all that they have to worry about.
Yeah, exactly.
Or of course, they just could double down on Fort Lauderdale, and they could finally say, yeah, here's our big new ship, the Destiny, right into Port Everglades, or put the Wish down there.
Right. Sorry about a sneeze. But yeah, that doubling up in. Oh
Don't do
god.
it. Don't do it.
I'll try not to. I got like a tickle in my nostril.
Don't do it.
Oh, don't do it. But I think it'd be cool to double up a Disney, 2 Disney ships in Fort Lauderdale. That would really show their commitment down there.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, they've built a terminal, so I mean, there's no reason they shouldn't do it.
Right.
Even if it's just something they do seasonally. Fort Lauderdale is absolutely a seasonal port, where
Yes.
the winter season, from November to probably mid-April, you're going to be seeing 6, 7, 8 ships a day sometimes. And then
Yeah.
from April to November, you're going to see maybe 1 a week.
Yeah, and Miami used to be the same way, but they are most certainly not anymore. Miami is just as busy in the summer now than it is in the winter. It's crazy. But yes, Fort Lauderdale is still a seasonal port. I think even this summer, I think the most there might be a triple ship day once, but I think it's at the most two. And that's because Celebrity is, for whatever reason, sailing like two ships out of there, Beyond and I think Reflection. But yeah, and then Disney's going to have the Magic down there, which you don't usually see. It's usually just like a Royal and Carnival down there, but Carnival's not there anymore. So Disney's taking that place. But yeah, they could do something seasonally in Fort Lauderdale, even if it was just over the summer, and do something like that.
Right, exactly. And I guess another thing to keep into consideration here is the whole natural gas thing. So she's going to go to Florida. It's going to be either Canaveral or Fort Lauderdale. I mean,
yeah.
I guess technically Galveston has it, but just again, it's kind of like my whole reasoning and thoughts behind Icon 3 going to Galveston. It's not happening just because they've never done it before. Not to say that it's not impossible, but if they've never done it in the past, where are they going to put their biggest and most ambitious ship there? Right out of the shipyard. They'll probably do it with one of the older ones, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
So, I think Fort Lauderdale, it has no problem. I mean, Port Everglades and Miami kind of share the same bunkers with Canaveral. It's so, logistically speaking, it's so bad on how they do it. Right now the Icon shares the Wish's fuel barge. Like when we were fueling in Miami on the Icon a couple weeks ago, or I guess last month, we had the same. It was the same bunker barge that the Wish uses for refueling to refuel
that thing looks like a piece of junk too.
It really does. It's funny because like these are new barges. I mean, fuel barges are not supposed to be very nice and pretty looking, but it's just funny.
Yeah.
And then you have, same with, the Clean Canaveral. But, you have the one with Mardi Gras and Celebration. They share the same one. It goes from Port Canaveral on Saturday down to Port of Miami on Sunday to fill up the Celebration. And then it goes all the way up to Savannah, Georgia, of all places, to fuel up.
Wild.
To come all the way back down. And it's the same thing with the Clean Canaveral barge. It's very... very weird. Of course, we're going to see more and more barges like that as natural gas becomes more widely available and more widely adopted by the industry, which it definitely is.
Right.
NCL is the only ones not building natural gas ships right now, which... Typical. I mean, yeah, I get their reasoning behind it, and honestly, it makes sense the way that they're doing all these ships too. It's because their reasoning behind not doing that with the Prima class is that they want to make those worldwide ships. They want it widely available, any ports, which is part of the reason behind going smaller, but they wanted to send these ships wherever in the world they wanted to where they could easily do it. Whereas you cannot do that with natural gas.
Exactly. So there you go.
Yeah. So, but, with Disney there, of course, these Triton class ships are going to be natural gas. And do you know if Adventure is natural gas? And hopefully maybe somebody in the comments or the chat here on our live stream can double check or fact check us there, but
I don't know, to be honest. I don't know.
Seeing that it's going to Asia, I want to say no, but it is a new ship, so it's not out of the realm of possibility that it's going to be natural gas.
Right, but yeah, I'm not 100% positive on that, so it'll be interesting to know.
Right, for sure. And I guess with the big thing, with the Asia cruise market, China, Singapore, even down in Australia too. I mean, those have been pretty booming markets over the last couple of years. COVID, of course, kind of shot China in the foot there with their market stronghold that they had, but that's starting to slowly recover as Spectrum of the Seas, is actually just finished up its sailing out of Singapore. It's heading up to Shanghai to do those Northern Asia cruises, to Japan, Korea, things like that.
Right.
So that market seems to slowly be recovering, and I think Disney has always kind of had their eye on that in the past.
Yeah, it would. I mean, like they're gonna have a ship out there, so that would be interesting to see how people react to that out there. I mean, I know they've got the Disney parks out there in some of those areas, but
they're very popular too.
Right, but just a different culture out there. I mean, obviously, I think Americans or certain Americans, when it comes to Disney, it's kind of a whole different culture at this point.
Disney adults.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm one of them. I'm not like that crazy, but um, it'll be interesting to see how a Disney ship does out there compared to like the theme parks that they have out there.
Right, exactly. I hear like Shanghai Disneyland. Of course, Tokyo Disney Sea is, of course, like
It's
supposed to
like one
be
of the best parks.
one of the best ones out there. Which, of course, that's part of the reason I want to go to Japan. Japan's top of my list, but um,
Okay, let's just say that's the reason.
I yeah, it ain't happening anytime soon. But Japan's on my bucket list. Let's just say that. But I I, I think it'll do really well over there. Of course, I was gonna, I guess, leading into that though, is that the Disney Adventure, which is a completely ship of its own, or like a ship of its own, unlike all the other ones, kind of like Destiny, where it's not ever a third ship in a class. It's the first time for Disney doing three, but it's also their first time, and it's definitely not a Disney thing to do either, but it's their first time doing a ship by itself. They're not building a second one. I think they even opted, I don't know if it was before or after the deal went through, but they opted to scrap the second ship in this class.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, there was actually a second. I guess for the background, Genting Hong Kong was the original builder and owner of the Genting Dream, and that was supposed to be this big, ambitious 200,000 ton and ambitious project for this cruise line. And of course, being a Chinese cruise line and just how everything was going, they were still relatively new, but I think they kind of just they got a little too far ahead of themselves, I think, and they kind
Yeah.
of started tripping over their own feet. And with COVID, they just fell flat on their face. Is pretty much what it is. They
Exactly.
actually owned the shipyard too, where this ship was being built, which is the crazy part. But
Right.
Meyer Werft stepped in once all the bankruptcy and everything went through and all of that. Meyer Werft, who of course, as some of us may know, is Papenburg and Turku. Those are like some of the most famous and like best shipbuilders in the industry.
Yep.
Papenburg, of course, is responsible for the Quantum class, the Breakaway class, even the Jubilee, and then of course Turku
Yeah.
is responsible for the other XL ships and the Icon class, Freedom class, the original Oasis class ships. Um,
Yeah.
so the
Yep.
ship's in
A lot
very
of
good
history.
hands. Lots of historic ships from that shipyard and from that company. So the ship is definitely in some pretty good hands. And of
For
course,
sure.
after all was said and done, there's no buyers for the ship. So I think they had started construction though on Genting Dream or Global Dream 2, I think is what it was called, Global Dream 2, and of course didn't get very far along. Maybe one or two blocks were put together. So I think they ended up opting to scrap it. And then, and yeah, talking about Mario Werf, they also now responsible for XL 4 and 5, which
Yeah.
almost ended up being changed to our topic this week, which we may do that. We may do the XL class again next week because I'm very excited for all that. But, so yeah, that Global Dream 2 ended up getting scrapped, but then, sat the probably 80 to 85% finished Global Dream. A 200,000 ton ship. That's still not been, at the time, Royal Caribbean is still only one of the only cruise lines. MSC's, I guess, the second and only other one to do it. But I mean, this was a massive ship. This is like an industry, one of the biggest in the world that they were building here.
Right. Yeah. It was very ambitious what they were trying to do, but clearly the world had other options
The
or
world
other ideas. So
the world had other options or other ideas or other
yeah, I don't know
plans.
why
Which
it's an option. I don't know how to speak American apparently or English. Yeah, I can't even get that right. American. I'm an idiot. But have we seen pictures of the ship at all? Like since Disney bought it, have they done anything?
They've done quite a bit to it. I haven't seen any recent pictures of it. Of course, we've seen the renderings, and I think they've opted.
Right.
Originally, they wanted to do 6 funnels, which was very weird.
I think
Because
they're doing 4.
I think they opted to do 4, but
So weird.
that ship is actually scheduled to come out next year, which is kind of crazy to think about.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it's funny because it's taking them over 2 years to finish a or a 90% finished ship.
That shows you how much
work needs to go in it.
And how much custom stuff Disney does.
Exactly.
They're gonna make that ship all Disney.
And that's one of their toughest projects ever, because that one, like I said earlier, it wasn't a Disney move in the first place to even make. Disney has never been one to finish somebody else's work. They will always do their own. They will always start from scratch. They do their own thing so they can tailor it exactly how they want it. Of course.
Yeah, I was surprised when they announced that they had bought it. I don't know what incentivized them to do that, but
a $340 million price tag is what incentivized them to do it.
Yeah, that's true.
Honestly, I thought for the longest time NCL was going to be the ones that buy it. With, of course, NCL, everybody wasn't doing very good during COVID and all that, but, I think NCL was kind of not in the best position to be buying any more ships and taking on any more debt at the time, so it kind of didn't happen. But I think Disney was kind of the only ones that were in a decent spot to do it. Royal Caribbean was not going to buy another ship. They have now a 6th and 7th Oasis class on the way. They got 2 more Icon class on the way. They have a whole nother project they haven't even talked about yet. Royal wasn't going to do it. Carnival's got all these XL ships. And there's one that happens. So Disney is kind of the only contender there.
Yeah, that's a good point. So there you go. Disney is making moves.
Yeah, and I think it's taking them so long too. And again, with that not being originally built for Disney, that's like 90% of the work is they're going in and just gutting the ship. Like what's already there in the first place, they're just gutting it.
Right.
And I don't think they have to work with what's already part of like the structural integrity of the ship. I think is part of it, because I know like what I've heard from some people that have spoken with Imagineers that are working on this, is that the hardest part right now is that they want to do things, but they're confined to certain areas on the ship.
Gotcha.
Like they have certain, like, say they want to put a lounge here, but originally it was supposed to be a casino, or originally it was supposed to be a bar. So it's not, the area wasn't big enough, but so they have to like kind of work around all of that, which is making it really tough for them. So that's pretty much why it's taking so long for them to make this project too.
Yeah, it makes sense for sure. So it'll be cool to see it once it's done. Though I'm sure we're gonna get a lot of pictures and stuff from it. So it'll be pretty cool.
Yeah, I think now that we're seeing more and more about Destiny too, I think we're gonna start seeing. I think Destiny comes first, and then Adventure is gonna come later in 2025.
Gotcha.
So I think we're gonna see probably a little bit of focus on Destiny for a little bit, but probably by middle to late this year, we'll probably start seeing more and more stuff come out about the Adventure, which
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's really neat too. It's not a split structure in the back, it's a split structure down the middle,
right?
But it's closed off in the back, but it has like a swoop downs where it still has that, I want to call it the aqua theater, but it's of course not, but it's got like that shape. It's, imagine if like they took it from the rock walls in the Oasis class and like sealed that off. That's kind of what it looks like in the back.
Right.
Which I think Disney could probably do some really cool stuff with that, whether it's like an adults only area. That would be a really cool adults only area.
Oh yeah.
I don't know what the pool looks like there, if it was supposed to be an infinity pool, but even just putting a pool back there, tons of loungers. It'd be really cool.
For sure. Yeah, they can do a lot with a ship that size. Mm-hmm. So it'll be interesting to see what the Imagineers come up with.
Yeah. Do you think we'll actually see the Lazy River concept on this? There's supposed to be a pretty extensive and pretty large water park on the top, and actually included a roller coaster, but we'll get into that too.
If Disney were to do it, this would probably be the ship to do it on, because it's so big.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be interesting. I would love to see it. It would really take up most of whatever deck it's on. So
right, that's kind of the problem. I think it would be such a neat and unique thing to do on a cruise ship, to include a lazy river, but it takes up so much deck space. It's like a go-kart track. Not pointing fingers at anybody, but I love the go-kart track. So I'm not like, not dogging them in any way, but they take up a lot of deck space.
Yeah.
So
A lot.
a lot.
A lot.
But so I mean, yeah, it's not out of the realm of possibilities. If somebody could put a go-kart track on a cruise ship, you can put a lazy river on a cruise ship. But
Yeah,
it's just
it'll
the whole
happen one day. I just don't know if we're there yet.
right, and that's true. Why do it on a ship in that market? That's also, I guess, that's a good point. I never even thought of that.
Yeah, because it's
because
not coming over here at least to begin with, right?
it's never going to come to the U.S. and like Disney even said, this is not going to be a U.S. based ship. This will probably never be a U.S. ship, which
Damn.
is unfortunate. It's unfortunate, but at the same time, I see why. Is because the ship already was built for that in the first place, and so that kind of just
Right.
helps them refit the ship. But as we saw with the Joy, there was no pool deck. It was a park,
Yeah, that was
which was
stupid.
really cool, actually. I kind of liked that park that they did. Of course, it's just kind of dumb, in the American market, that's just not something that would go over very well because
Right.
we love the pool decks up here. But like having a park go
Sure.
down the middle of the ship like that was so neat looking on the Joy.
Yeah, I like my pools. I like to swim
Yeah.
and let my fat body float around.
Good stuff. Good stuff. I guess we did go into the hot tub finally on the Liberty, didn't we?
What?
I said we finally like went into the hot tub, like into a pool
Yes.
type of thing on the Liberty for once. Usually we don't normally do that. We're usually just
we
running around
don't.
the ship being dumb. But it
We were just being dumb in the hot tub now.
so yeah, I guess, why would we do it in that market? So I guess that is a good point. Like I wonder what they will do with that top deck. Of course we're going to see more and more over the next couple of weeks and couple months and stuff like that, but will we see a park kind of like we did on Joy, or would we see it's a giant ship. I mean, it's not
Right. They've got room
we
to
could
do
easily see
everything.
it. We could easily see the roller coaster still make it over. It could probably still just turn into a theme park up there almost.
Yeah.
It definitely wouldn't be
That
the
would
first.
Cool to see Disney do.
Well, maybe it would be the first time we've seen that, but like it wouldn't be a non-Disney thing. It definitely would be something that we would expect from Disney to see a theme park like that come out on a ship, or maybe not even a theme park, but you know what I mean, like all sorts of
Right.
ride, like a carousel and probably a roller coaster, or even some sort of twist on the Aquamouse that we see on the Triton class, things like that.
Right. Yeah, they I think they're going to do something cool with it. I know it's going to the for the Asian market and still,
Mhm.
but when you have that much deck space, I mean, you got to do something, right? You can't
Right.
have it all parked.
They
So,
have a lot of real estate up there, and that's like
Yeah.
the big thing is like that's just the top deck that we're even like coming up with stuff for, but like you got a lot of real estate up there to work with,
right.
and that'd be pretty cool. I mean, again, the original ship was supposed to have a roller coaster, so who's to say? I don't know if that was already on the ship or not. I of course haven't seen it in the renderings, and we only have seen just the one rendering of the starboard side of the ship. So
Right.
it's not even like we haven't seen, or that we've seen all the renders for it. And of course, like we've seen with the original renders of the Prima class in Project Leonardo, when they first showed those to us, the ship was empty. There was nothing on there.
Yeah.
But of course, now as we see on the Prima class, there is so much on there. Like they packed
Mhm.
water park, roller coaster, or not roller coaster, go-karts, all sorts of
Right.
stuff like that. Yeah, it's very condensed into one space, but just because the renders don't show anything right now doesn't mean that we're not going to get anything on the ship.
Exactly. Yeah. The initial renders, for the most part, are typically just to show you what the ship is going to look like, the
Mhm.
main structure.
Mhm.
'Cause I think even what was it? I think Mardi Gras. I think her initial rendering didn't even show the roller coaster on it. I think it just showed the actual ship, and then when they released, I guess like a more detailed version of it is when they showed that the water park was going to be in the back. They were going to have the roller coaster.
Mhm.
So, yeah, it's really just to kind of show you what the ship looks like. So,
Mhm.
as we get closer, the renderings will be a little bit more detailed, and you'll get more like different angles of it, but not just that one
Right.
starboard side look.
And bringing out a new ship, it's all about hype cycle. I mean, you want to release things bit by bit, and that's kind of what I think Royal Caribbean did a fantastic job with this in the Icon class, where they were like, oh, here's Absolute Zero, the all new take that we've done on the ice skating rink. Oh, and then a couple months later we have the Aquadome. Yeah, like the all new spin on the Aqua Theater, and of course we have the Overlook area that they've combined it into a lounge, a lookout area, a theater. There's bars, there's restaurants. They made it its own section of the ship. So I mean, they advertised that, and a couple weeks later they were like, oh, here's the pools. We've got ourselves a swim up bar, first one at sea, and then after that they're like, here's the big talk. We've got the big water park. And so I mean, you got to do it in thing. And of course, the original, they didn't really show us an actual rendering of Icon until probably right at the end, when they've already talked about all this stuff either.
Right, and the ship was almost done, structurally by the time they actually released it. I mean, we were able to know what the ship looked like before they even released renderings, like the initial renderings of it, which was crazy.
That was the craziest part about Icon, is that they really didn't tell us or like show any sort of rendering or anything of the ship until the ship was almost ready. Like the Aquadome had just been placed when they finally showed us what like an actual render of the ship.
Yeah, that was crazy. I couldn't believe they waited that long.
It was pretty crazy. And now I've already been on it.
There you go.
Yeah, it's just crazy to think about. I mean, and you know how Disney is. I mean, they are very secretive about anything and everything they do. So it's not. Yeah, we probably won't know too much. And that's actually one really cool thing, is that that's actually a enclosed shipyard and like building hall, like Papenburg is.
Interesting.
So they have this thing under wraps, under a cover, inside a building. So we really don't even know what the ship's going to look like in the first place.
Right.
I think the black livery is on it. Let me see if I can find any. But yeah, like the livery is on the ship and everything like that. I've seen.
Cool.
Yeah, it's just not, of course, it's just still in that same kind of state that it's always been, but it looks like it's got the black paint on it, which is really cool.
Gotcha. Nice.
But yeah, they're slowly getting there. But anyways, yeah, so they have the ability to keep this extremely under wraps and extremely secretive, like they always like to, which will be really cool, just to kind of see how it all progresses. Of course, they do kind of get the ability to do that with the, I guess in Papenburg too, but we already know what the Wish looks like. I mean, it's gonna be the same with the Triton and with the Treasure and the Destiny. And we kind of already knew in the first place that it was going to look very similar to the Dream class. They even pretty much said, yeah, it's going to be a pretty big play off of the Dream class. They're going to be very similar, just because we like that design, which I think is one of the best designs still.
It looks great.
It's just that they're a little on the smaller side, or at least they're medium-sized ships, yes, but compared to everything that's coming out now, they're not a mega ship by any means.
Right.
But yeah, I think Disney Cruise Line's got a lot of cool stuff ahead of them. I know originally, to start out with, the adventure is going to be sailing out of Singapore. Not exactly sure where. Probably like Vietnam, Malaysia. The southern areas, probably like to Hong Kong. So it'll be really cool to see like kind of places that it goes, especially with a ship that big. I don't know if it's going to be able to go to Australia. Not that it's going to be made for that market or anything like that, but it'd be really interesting to see what they do with it.
Yeah, for sure. I'm looking forward to getting more details, but I think we're going to learn more about the Destiny first.
Yes.
And then they'll start cranking out adventure stuff.
Yeah, for sure. So with Treasure and Destiny coming out, of course with Wish, like what's your thing that you're most excited for about those two ships, or one of the two ships?
It'll be nice to have, I mean, I love the fantasy, don't get me wrong, but it'll be nice to have a Wish class ship replace her. I think it's time. She's been pretty much running that route since she came out.
Right, exactly.
So it'll be nice to have a new ship-to-ship spot on Saturdays because it's kind of hard to see the Wish on Fridays and Mondays.
Right.
But so yeah, it'll be nice to have a new ship running the week-long routes. And then obviously that'll play into where Fantasy will go eventually. I know she's going to be in Canaveral for a little bit, but
yeah.
And then it'll be interesting to find out where Destiny goes. I really like that name, so it'll be interesting to see what they do with that. And just the fact that Disney's going to have more than 5 ships is going to be great. So
yeah, that's crazy.
A lot of options
for sure. I really like the name Destiny. I was surprised by it. At first I was like, the Destiny, like it didn't sound like a Disney name to me. I was always thinking like Explorer or Imagination. I think like that would be a really cool Disney name. So that's what I always thought it was going to end up being. But so I was like kind of thrown off guard at first, but I was like, all right, I like Destiny. That's a good name for it.
Right.
And I think it plays along really well with the whole heroes and villains vibe too.
For sure.
So it'll be really cool to see what they do with it and what they do with fantasy what they do with fantasy. Like you said, we've had the same ship on the 7-night itineraries for them for the past 12 years, which is crazy to think about. 12 years that they've been doing that.
Insane.
So we're finally gonna get at something new, which is gonna be really nice.
Right.
But yeah. So overall, lots to look forward to. Disney over the next. Really, by the end of next year, they're going to take their fleet from 5 ships to 8 ships, and really between the years of 2022 to 2025. So the span of 3 years, or I guess 4 years, they're gonna double their fleet. If you include Wish on that, they're gonna go from 4 ships to 8 ships, which is absolutely incredible.
Yeah, and it's well needed. The cruise industry is growing even faster than it was before. So the fact that they're getting extra ships in there, to have extra, more options for destination stuff is good. So good timing, Disney. Yeah, great timing.
The industry, to say the industry is booming right now would be an understatement.
Oh, very understatement, like Australia statement. That's how far on the down under.
Down under.
Down under.
Oh my god. But I mean, you're not wrong though. I mean, like it's crazy. Like people were always saying like, oh, like after COVID and things like that, like the industry is going to take like years to recover, but like by the end of 2022, the industry was back in full swing. At least here in the United States. And I know like, companies like Costa, I think MSC has just been going so crazy lately that they kind of just like they ruined Costa, because Europe was their market, and here comes MSC like, nah, that's our market now.
Yeah, for real.
And so I think Costa started transitioning over towards Asia, and then the Asia market just turned into a hot mess. So it's crazy to think, but MSC's kind of asserted their dominance in the right time, and all the wheels are spinning and clicking at all at the same time, And I know we've talked about it yesterday, but I know Carnival is kind of slipping right now because they don't have any new builds. I know they just launched the Firenze, which is going to be heading over to Long Beach here in the next couple of days, but they don't have any new ships until 2027, which is a long way out. I mean, 3 years, so they're probably it'd probably be late next year they're going to get started on that ship. So we've got some time, but they're positioning themselves to end this decade with a big bang. That's all I'm going to tell you.
Yeah. Yep. That's for sure. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with those ships as well. I wonder if they'll send one to California. I don't think it'll make sense, but
I don't think so.
Who knows?
I don't. The California market's very interesting to me because they've put new ships over there, but they also have not been mega ships. I don't think mega ships are really meant to be going over there. That market's not ready for mega ships yet. I know the Royal Caribbean is doing Quantum over there, and actually, I guess being on the topic of Disney, I mean Disney has a ship occasionally over there. I know this year it's in Australia instead, but like last year it was in San Diego.
Right.
But I mean, I don't know about California. I mean, I want the Panorama. I can tell you that. I want the Panorama and the Firenze over here, But
please.
they took the Panorama, they took the Radiance, which is kind of odd, and then of course the Firenze. I mean, Carnival's going crazy over there on the West Coast, but I don't think an XL ship is going to end up over there.
Good.
Yeah, and I think one of these two new ships is going to end up on 3 and 4 nights, I think, from the XL class. But again, next week I think we're going to dive into it a little bit more. But for anybody who thinks that Carnival is not still working on that 200,000 ton project, you are greatly mistaken. From details that I have heard personally, that could be announced any day now. Those ships are still coming. That 200,000 ton project is still happening, despite these two. Because that was my big thing. I was like, oh, with these two new XL class ships, like, it must be done. And I was like, and then I quickly heard, no, that's still happening. Right. So Carnival's
got big plans.
Carnival is absolutely, gonna end the 2020s with a bang. They've got some big stuff up their sleeve. But anyways, back on Disney. I mean, yeah, that's really all I have for Disney. The history, the future, and outlook. They've got a lot of stuff to look forward to over the next couple of years. It's gonna be a really, really exciting time for anybody who loves Disney and loves Disney cruises.
Yes, very exciting. So I'm glad they're making moves now, because like we said, it was 30 years they only had 4 ships, and even that was really far spread apart. So it's good to see that they're really going at it with more ships. Mm-hmm. So good for you, Disney.
Right, and I don't know when we'll ever see the 2 old ones getting retired, but once they turn 30, it's gonna get pretty tough to maintain those. So I don't know how much longer those are gonna stick around. So who knows? We might even see the next project from Disney Cruise Line here. Probably by the end of the decade, we might see another project coming out of them.
It's possible.
Yeah. Anyways, we'll go ahead and wrap it up there. We haven't quite hit an hour like we normally do, but we're just short of it, so it's fine. But yeah.
Oh well.
Thanks as always for joining, Justin, and of course thanks to anybody who's here live or listening, watching on Spotify, Apple, whatever you're listening and watching on. Thanks for listening to this point. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you guys next week for our podcast, most likely on the future of Carnival instead. So have a great night, everybody.
Good night.